Good evening. I'd like to open the regular meeting for the Temple City City Council of March 21st, 2023 to order. I thought I did.
Are we going to close the other one?
Oh.
He did close.
Oh, we closed
I
it?
did.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Sternquist?
Present.
Councilmember Vizcarra?
Here.
Councilmember Yu?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Here.
Mayor Mann?
Here. Before we move to the invocation, I'd like to ask Mr. Greg Murphy, our city attorney, to report out from our closed session meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In closed session, the City Council was briefed on both the item of potential litigation and on the item of significant exposure to litigation. Upon completion of the briefings on both items, no reportable action was taken. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. For the invocations, well, I guess originally we had Pastor Darrell Kelty to provide an invocation, but in lieu of that, I guess I will provide the invocation. So if we could all rise, please, and please stay standing after the invocation for the pledge. Our Lord Father, thank you for gathering us here today to discuss the business of the city of Temple City. And please open our hearts and minds for all of council to make the best decisions we possibly can for our great community. Please also look after everyone, all the public servants, all the first responders, all of our police officers, firefighters who protect us on a daily basis. May we continue to work together as a community to make Temple City a better place for all to live, work, and play. Amen.
Amen.
All right. For our Pledge of Allegiance, we do have Troop 181 Girls BSA Troop who will lead the pledge and the presentation of the colors. The Scouts presenting the flags tonight are Karen Wong, Madison Zhao, Sophie Ng, Jessica Wang, and Madeline Tiet. Please go ahead.
Color guard attention. Color guard forward march. Those in uniform and veterans, please salute. Those not in uniform, please place your right hand over your heart. Halt. Color guard, post the flag of the United States of America. Color guard, post the flag of the great state of California. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard, reform. Color guard, retreat. Color guard, halt. Color guard, dismissed. Audience at ease.
Is that Kim Tiet's stuff?
Thank you so much, Troop 181. We appreciate you being here with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on ceremonial matters, we have none. Next, we move to public comments on items not listed on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the council? All right. Seeing none, I will close public comments and I will move on to number 7, the consent calendar. Before we have a motion for any consent calendar items, I would like to pull 7B. And are there any other items? If not, may I have a motion for the remaining items?
Motion to approve a consent calendar other than item B.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any objections? No, then may we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Sternquist,
Yes?
Councilmember Viscara,
Here.
Councilmember
Here.
Yu.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Mann.
Yes. Thank you. So for item B, this is confirming the mayor's appointment of council members to serve as delegates and alternates to other agencies or organizations. I would like to propose one change to change the alternate delegate for the LA County Sanitation District to Councilmember Sternquist, if she is so willing to do so.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
'Cause I
And,
can't do it.
Madam,
Sorry, sir, I wanted to make sure that that's not the mayoral delegate. There's one organization that requires the.
right, the mayoral delegate will stay. The alternate on the current version is Councilmember Yu. We'd like to change it to Councilmember Sternquist.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I guess I'll make that motion then to make that change.
Second.
All right. Can we get a roll call vote, please? You okay?
Councilmember Sternquist,
Yes?
Councilmember Viscara,
Yes.
Councilmember Yu,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Mann.
Yes. All right. Next, we move to the public hearing. There is none. Unfinished business, there is none. New business, item A, we have the consideration and approval of an agreement with Flock Group Incorporated for an automated license plate reader camera subscription. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Mann and
Thanks.
members of the council. Mr. Azumi, we actually have a down tree on Olive right now that's blocking an entire intersection. So the entire team is out right now taking care of that. So I'm going to be stepping in for Mr. Azumi. With us today is Sergeant Labai, who is with the Traffic Division and Traffic for the LA County Sheriff's Temple Station as well. And any questions that you may have, we'll be able to try to do our best to answer. Before you tonight is an item for consideration and approval of an agreement with Flock, which is an automatic license plate reader application and camera system. That camera system, as we would propose, would be go to 10 stationary locations noted in the staff report. What those ALRP systems would do is similar to the ALRP automated license plate readers, which they would do at key intersections throughout the city, similar to the ALRP camera system that we have in one of our patrol cars. What they do essentially is they read license plates, they dictate what from fixed cameras locations, and to provide greater coverage, those systems with the software systems and everything else and 30 days worth of data storage allows us to get evidence for vehicles, license plates by capturing the make, model, color, license plate, state of plate, and the timestamp. What this system does not do, similar to the current ALRP system as well, it does not do facial recognition. So there is not somebody's in terms of concerns about privacy. One of the advantages of this Flock system is that it's installed in other communities around the area and within close proximity to Temple Station, including Arcadia, Covina, El Monte, Glendora, Monterey Park, Rosemead, and San Marino and South Pasadena. So what that will allow us to do, and what will allow just law enforcement, one other question that was brought to my attention was, will only be sworn personnel who have access to that information? That is correct. Only sworn personnel have access to that information. Civilian personnel nor city staff will not have access to that information. But what that information does provide within this broader system, and why we can bring this forward to you as with this vendor specifically is because the surrounding communities actually use this proprietary system and this system that can be uniformly used throughout those throughout those agencies. So, for example, if a stolen car is reported in Arcadia, the flock system will allow Deputy Lamb and our dedicated team to look up, see that GTA is happening in Arcadia or vice versa, and actually be able to track it through Temple City. So we'll be able to track, or if someone calls a burglary now, has a description of a vehicle. That description of the vehicle can be uploaded into the flock system, and then not only Temple Station, but the surrounding agencies around us will actually have that information as well. So staff is proposing that we look at the locations, the 10 locations noted as kind of direct thoroughfares and other locations where we know, because many of our burglaries and GTAs happen with individuals that do not reside within the city and are going to and from Temple City. So these would be the locations that we would identify. This was also a request of Captain Reyes, as well as an additional tool in their toolbox that our public safety personnel could use. It is a subscription-based system, so we're not buying the actual cameras themselves. We're buying for $25,000 a year the use of 10 locations with the 30-day backup of data as well. There would be one $3,500 one-time initial installation fee going forward. It is a 2-year agreement to kind of, well, I wouldn't want to call this a trial, but to test it out over the first 2 years to see how well it works, how effective it is for our dedicated team, our detectives at the station as well. We're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Mayor, I have a question.
Oh, yes, Councilmember Yu.
Mr. City Manager, I understand from the staff report that deputy or detective can look up certain license plate number and see if that car has actually passed by our database, our city and farm database. But I thought that the system may also have the ability to give alerts if the license plate number is a stolen car. I just want to see if that is part of this.
I'll let the sergeant correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't mind coming up, but I believe that it does, but Sergeant Leba, if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Robert Leba. I'm actually, my partner is the Traffic Services and Detective Sergeant. I'm a Detective Sergeant here at Temple. Just a quick little background is that I've been in the department now about 25 years, and 19 of those years I did here at Temple City. I was a detective for Temple City for 14 years. So I'm pretty familiar with it. I watched the new trees grow and all that stuff. So, I was happy to come back when our captain asked me to come back. So, and he's the one who asked me to come here today. Unfortunately, our Sergeant, Rich Lewis, his mother passed away this last week, so I'm here on his behalf. In regards to your question, the system does provide alerts. This system is advanced to where, as a detective, when I was here, we had just the basic ALPR system, which was, we went to a call for service or a crime in progress, we got a license plate, we had to call the secretary, we had to enter it into a system. Time elapsed, and at that point it only allowed our investigators or patrol to be at the right place at the right time. With the new flock system and in its advancement of technology is that we don't really have to be at the right place at the right time anymore, because we can, in the field, and this is limited to specific people who are trained, who have gone through all the training for this, they can enter a plate in the system from the car. They can enter it in, and immediately as they enter it, anywhere where it hits on a flock system on any agency who has that, it'll show direction of travel. So we're no longer being at the right place at the right time, and we have a direction of travel. And every time it hits another flock, it's another alert, and they're immediate to all the cars who will have the flock system activated on their vehicles. So right away, as we're responding, and we know he's going north, but everybody's going south because we think it's the nearest freeway, now we can turn around and get to where we need to be. And as they go through all the different flock systems, it immediately alerts, and then, you know, we can provide that information to our helicopters or, you know, outside agencies, those type of things. And that's how we're kind of utilizing it now, and it's been working. It works actually really well. It's the best I've seen thus far. I don't know if there's anything else that's better than it right now.
Well, thank you for that explanation, but what I was really asking is, well, what you just described is a great system. That way you can track questionable cars traveling through a city or community, or because there's so many cities that had it, you
Right.
pretty much track it the entire San Gabriel Valley. But what I was really asking was that could the system be programmed to access a stolen car database so that any stolen car coming through Temple City
Yes.
would flash? So the deputies on duty would get an alert, oh, there's a stolen car driven through or just passing through Temple City.
Yes, sir, it does. So any car that is entered through the SBS system at any station, anywhere in California,
Anywhere.
is automatically processed through the system, as well as through the court system. When they enter, say there was a robbery a year ago and a specific car was used with a specific license plate that was obtained during the investigation, the investigator would have placed that license plate also, or whatever it may be, even if it was a warrant, say, to like my address because I was in a car and I did whatever it was.
Yeah.
My license plate would be in there also. So, and until that warrant has been, or that person's been arrested, that warrant will remain on that license plate. So it never goes away. Same with the stolen vehicle, you know, any type, it doesn't matter what crime, but as soon as it's entered at the station level by any agency in California, it's automatically part of that system.
Will it track paper licenses?
Yes, they do. So now the paper licensing, as of right now, it depends on the condition it's in. But if it's a newer vehicle or, you know, it doesn't really have a lot of sun damage or those type of things, it is. But those, luckily, the time span on those paper ones, initially they were like 3 months before you get a new one. Now they're less than a month. So, so they stay fairly new, but they do track them also.
Okay. One last question, if I may. So it uses a camera and then reads it, the software would analyze it. Does it then rely on lighting? Do we need to have great street lighting, or does it work 24 hours?
Yeah, the modern license plate has very good, as long as it hasn't been altered, the reflective paint that they use now, even the paint that they use on those paper plates is very, I'm not sure what the term, but it picks it up very clearly.
Oh, okay.
The cameras are pretty, I guess, awesome. They're very clear.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, Mayor.
So it's not a video, it's just a shot,
It's a still shot.
still shot.
Yeah.
So as it goes by the camera, assuming the camera picks up the license, but does it take a shot of the car as well?
It gets the car.
Everything.
It'll get the front, sometimes the top, and as it passes. Because you'll have camera that's a front and back, so usually we always get the front and back of the car.
So I know Vince asked about, well, entering data like a license plate, and then if that appears in Temple City and runs through one of these, we'll know that.
Yes.
What if they don't have that, if they just have it's a silver, Prius? Can they put that information in, and will
It's my
that
car.
register as the car passes?
So I have a great example for you. Last week, we had a home invasion robbery in Chapman Woods. All we had from this victim was a black Charger with a license plate that had oranges on it, which we all know it's from Florida.
Florida, yeah.
So automatically, they called it in. They let us know. Our investigator, like, the only one we could think of was oranges, was Florida. We plugged it in, and within 10 seconds, it picked up the only license plate that was a black Charger entering from Rosemead onto the 210, which is a black Charger with a Florida plate.
Wow.
Leading from that, we found the plate, which led to, and we had very good video at the house, thankfully, that it led to that vehicle had been impounded 2 weeks earlier in Ontario, and just so happens that the guy driving was the same guy in the video, and then from that, we used facial recognition for the second suspect, but because of tattoos, and we were able to identify them both. So It's
So I guess your answer is yes.
yeah, it's a great tool. I love it. That's why I'm here. I was like, I'll go. I love it. It's a great tool.
Okay. One last, I don't know if this is necessary for you, but I noticed in the report, it says that flock safety focuses on objective evidence like vehicles and license plates like we spoke about. Okay, they put in information, license plate, vehicles to identify by capturing the car features, okay, which we've already talked about. But this says people's privacy is protected by not using facial recognition technology and not recording any personally identifiable information such as name, addresses, or phone numbers. But correct me if I'm wrong, but once you have the license plate, you would have access to some of that information, wouldn't you?
Through a different database, which are restricted to a specific investigation. So say from the license plate, we do have a name, obviously, with the registered owner and address. We, as an investigator, have to provide an actual criminal case that we put in there that's monitored by the federal government or what entity through the state. So whether it be the Department of Motor Vehicles, through NCIC, the National Crime System, all those are monitored. So we have to provide something to show, hey, why are we looking into this further, which keeps us on the up and up, that we're not just randomly looking.
No, I understand, and I think you would want that information because that would help perhaps to solve crimes by matching people up with
Right,
this information.
but it's not just a random thing.
Right,
It's
yeah, you're not like, I understand what you're getting at. People would be concerned, well, we don't want you in our business if you don't have a
Right.
reason to be there.
Yeah, anything that we don't need, we just overlook, and it eventually falls off the system because it's not needed.
Okay. And I guess, I don't know, Brian, maybe this is for Brian. How do we go about selecting the 10 locations? Was that based on traffic, past crimes, or I mean?
That was a combination of staff working with our sheriff's personnel to identify the key locations that they thought would be
Okay.
the best situated for, and what the patterns that they've seen when Van and team have kind of tracked down burglary and now progress and those kind of things. So they thought these were the best based on their experience, the best locations.
And then my follow-up question real quick, is 10 enough? I mean, I guess we could have more, but just you have to pay for more, I'm assuming.
We'd have to pay for more, but I think with this 10 and talking to Mr. Azumi
Good
in
stuff.
writing this report, this 10 captures a lot of the areas
Okay.
that we think would kind of encompass areas where traffic would be coming in and out of. It's not based on the staff's experience. It's not likely when a GTA or a burglary and now progress happens that they're cutting through a lot of the residential streets to escape essentially or come in. They're coming in through from those primary collector streets or arterial streets.
All right, good, thank you. Thank you, Sergeant.
Sergeant, do you mind staying, just in case other council members?
You're a popular guy, sir.
I do have one follow-up because Councilmember Chavez just asked. I mean, there's a cost obviously to it, but it's, we oftentimes talk about improving the quality of life. In our city, we talk about public safety. If 10 is good, would 20 be better? I mean, to Councilmember's point, Chavez's point. I mean, it's a fair price to pay, but I thought if it makes our residents' homes safer, I mean, maybe we should look into. Maybe we start with 10, but perhaps, Sergeant, in your opinion, a city of our size, is 10 enough, or do you think there should be more?
From what I was told by our crime analyst, who spoke to Mr. Urzumi also, I think 10 is a fair amount, and the reason being is you're surrounded by cities that already have a bunch of them. So, and we're centrally located. We're not right next to a freeway. So they have to go through those cities who already have them, which no one's hanging around Temple City after they commit a crime. They're leaving. So more than likely they go through Arcadia, whatever. As soon as we put that plate in or whatever, it doesn't matter where they are. If there's a flock camera there, it's going to pick it up immediately. So 10 is a fair amount right now. To go in the 20s, I think that's kind of far-fetched, I think. But 10 should be fine.
Because if I read this report correctly, we're getting the 10, but that includes all the other ones.
You get right now, I
Right.
think there are 3,300 cameras,
Okay.
all over the Sangre, they're all over the place.
Okay, so the database is shared amount, not
It's-
just unique
yeah.
to LA Sheriff Department.
Yeah, as soon as we enter it, whoever has the flock system, and if it goes to that city, it pops up immediately on their screens as well as ours. Yeah, it's a great system.
That's
Is there any gap cities around us that don't have it
The-
besides us?
The only one is South El Monte. They're the only ones who don't. El Monte, Monterey Park, Pico Rivera has it. Everybody around them. However, in South El Monte is in the works right now to obtain it.
Okay.
good.
Councilmember Viscar.
Are the traffic light cameras still in use in, California, Russ?
Yeah, they are. They're mostly those are monitored by Sacramento and the California Highway Patrol, but we do have access if we need to. Mostly if it's traffic related, but we can't use them for criminal investigations unless it has to do specifically with a very high profile case, or if it's traffic related, hit and runs and those type of things.
And I noticed on the staff report, San Gabriel isn't listed. Do we know what San Gabriel has or does in lieu of the cameras?
San Gabriel actually uses the vigilant system, but the main thoroughfares that go through it are the flock systems. So unless they specifically cut through small residential areas, which we haven't really found that to be, and it's not a very large city the way it's set up. So I don't think it's been like an issue for us at all.
Okay.
And it's not really a way to, if there's a crime here in Temple City, they're not going through San Gabriel to get away. It's either north or south. Everything's always north or south, from what our crime analysts have told, because it's the freeways. The quickest way out of here is the freeways. And they know we have cameras.
Right.
So they're getting out of here as soon as possible. But our best chance of catching them, like I said, by not being at the right place at the right time, is having these cameras and catching them before they get to the freeways. And even if they do, it allows us to get a helicopter or something out there right away.
Okay. And I guess I have one more question. In the staff report, it also mentions ALPR is officially partnered with Axon and integrated into evidence.com. What exactly is that?
ALPR is the camera system that is currently being used, that's on the vehicles. Axon are the body cameras that we use.
Oh.
That's all it is. And evidence.com is the database that the sheriff's department uses. It's a centralized database now. Everything goes there. There is no, I take a picture on my personal camera and download it. Everything we have, the department provided us with phones that have cameras that go straight to Axon, as well as our body cams. Everything goes directly there once we dock it into basically a feeding device, and then by the end of the day, everything is in there. Doesn't matter what we do, it's always in there.
Okay, I see. And I guess one more question, actually. So the unincorporated areas north and around us, I presume those traffic intersections also have ALPR?
They have the flock system.
Sorry, the flock system.
Yeah, they have the flock system, yeah.
I'm getting the acronyms mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just real quick. Do you know how long the system's been used or how long it's been in effect?
Actively about 3 years, where there's two systems. There's the Vigilant system and the flock. I think between the two major companies, they're trying to combine. But Vigilant is a national system. We're more concerned about immediate public safety, and the flock is by far the best.
And I don't know if this is a question you can answer, or maybe our city attorney. Are you aware of any court challenges to this system or use of, as far as the prosecution of crimes or anything like that? Because I remember years ago, some of you may remember, city of Pasadena had those cameras set up all over the place, and were taking pictures of everybody and giving them tickets, and then that got thrown out by the courts, and they could no longer use that. So is there anything like that that you're aware of that's going on right now?
We have never had any issues. We disclose it immediately, how we obtain the information. Normally, they're accepting, departmental, we just use the term departmental resources, because we're just give an identification of a vehicle and a license plate. We're not using it for any other purpose, and we have to form our own probable cause and reason
Sure.
for arrest and all that stuff. It's not just because there's a plate, we have to do a little more than that.
Yeah, and I can see that that system that was used back then is certainly a lot different than what this is doing.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if we were aware of it, because, people challenge everything all the time, so. Lawyers.
That's why they hire lawyers.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. Any other questions? Okay, all right. If
Thanks
not,
so much.
yeah, thank you, Sergeant. If not, I'd like to open up the public comment. Anyone from the public would like to comment? Mr. Janvasian?
Mr. Stafford?
Good evening, Mayor Mann. It's good saying that for the first time. So that's, well,
First time in 5 years.
yes, right. My question would be, does it have the ability to more or less cars be recognized other than the dedicated patrol car that has all the fancy stuff on the top and says ASAP? Is it that same type of thing? And then my second question would be, where does it read the license plate from? The front or the back? I think we can all agree that probably 85% of the Teslas don't have license plates in the front.
Now, wait a minute. That's not true, I don't think.
Okay,
All right.
so those are my two questions.
Okay.
Yours is at
Thank you.
15%.
I'll let Sergeant Labor address, but the MDCs that each of the patrol vehicles will have access to that flock system. As to the cameras, I'd let the sergeant kind of touch base on that, if you would, please.
In regards to the cameras, all cameras that will be installed will have a front and rear camera at the intersection, whether you're going north or south, east or west. So it always will capture the front and back of the car. And in regards to there are cameras on the car, there are no cameras. It's just if a car travels through that camera area once a vehicle is entered into the system, it'll automatically, it's a really loud, obnoxious sound that pops up on your screen, and it makes a lot of noise, and then there's a picture of that car. And it will show a small little mapping of direction of travel. And, there's like sometimes it could be a 5-second delay or a 15-second delay, but enough time to get us where we need to be.
Thank you, Sergeant. Anyone else would like to comment?
They know it's cool.
All right, hearing none, I will close the public comment. Any final council questions or comments? Councilmember Sternquist? Mayor Pro Tem?
No questions, except that it's a great system.
I concur, and I think you could maybe tell from our questions how excited we are about this. May I have a motion for this?
Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve the services agreement with Flock Grouping, Flock Safety for 10 automated license plate readers, camera subscriptions in the amount of $28,500 for the first year, $25,500 for the second year, and that we authorize the city manager to sign and execute the agreement and authorize a budget amendment of $28,500 in the general fund for fiscal year 2022-2023, and find that the approval of the agreement and subscription services with Flock Group is not a project as defined under section 15378 of the California Environmental Quality Act state guidelines. Therefore, pursuant to state guidelines, section 15060C3, no environmental review is required.
Second?
All right, a motion and a second. If there's no objections, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Sternquist?
Yes?
Councilmember Vizcarra?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Yes.
Mayor Mann?
Yes. So that's been unanimously approved, and I just want to thank the sergeant for being here with us tonight and answering our questions, and also thank our dedicated team for all your service every single day.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll move on to 10B, which is the fiscal year 2022-23 mid-year financial review, the treasurer's report, revenue, expenditure, and capital project summary reports, and budget amendment. Now, I'll turn it over to Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Mann and members of the council, and then I'll subsequently be turning it over to your Administrative Services Director and City Treasurer. During my City Manager's report, I will be talking about some of our investment issues as well, with a lot of the concerns about the banking system right now. I have the utmost confidence in our City Treasurer and Finance and Admin Services Director. But I'll talk about that a little bit in my City Manager's report as well. So if okay, we will move forward, and Susan will provide a overview of our mid-year financial review and the financial position the city sits in as of today.
All right, great. Please, Director Paragus.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members.
Good evening.
This is our regular quarterly review of our financial status in the city. This is our mid-year for fiscal year 22-23. So tonight we're recommending that the council receive the fiscal year 2022-23 mid-year financial review and the related reports attached with it, and then also approve and authorize staff to revise the fiscal year 22-23 revenue and expenditure estimates as indicated in the attachment A of the report. Tonight, we'll briefly go and analyze mainly the general fund, as that's our primary operating fund, talk about its revenues and expenditures, as well as its fund balance, and then a brief conclusion and brief outlook for tonight. So on the general fund, our revenues are trending higher, and which is why we're recommending a $430,855 budget amendment. Primarily, that's due to the sales tax revenues. It's expected to be higher by about $190,000 this year, on top of what we budgeted during the adoption process. Additionally, because of higher interest rates, our interest income is expected to be higher at $117,000. Property tax, as usual, it's always slightly higher than projected, so I'm requesting an amendment of almost $69,000, and then the property tax is also tied to the in lieu vehicle license fee, so I'm requesting a little over $54,000. On the expenditure side, the general fund is primarily on track. However, there is some small adjustments that I'm requesting. As you recall, the council chamber AV upgrades were approved by you, and we were going to budget that in the general fund. However, at this time, I would like for us to reallocate that from the general fund to the American Rescue Plan Act fund, which is the ARPA fund. So that's one request I would like to make. Additionally, for vehicle expenses, you have already approved to purchase or lease these vehicles. However, as you know, the vehicle costs lately have gone up, especially because of the lack of supplies. So the increase in these costs are mainly for the supplies or aftermarket of these vehicles. So there's a total of 4 vehicles, and in total of the increase is $11,355. And then lastly, expenditure-wise, this year has been, and we've only been at mid-year, we've had a number of recruitments this year, and of course there's expenses related to that. We've already spent the $2,000 that we budgeted this year and well over it. Additionally, in the last 2 years, we've been requesting for an invoice from the vendor we get our fingerprints from. They're at low cost, and that bill finally came in. So that's about over 2.5 years worth of charges, which is about $6,000. So,
Susan, why does that take so long to?
You know, we have been hounding them. I don't know why. They've taken so long to bill us. So we finally, Karen, my HR analyst, finally reached out to them and said, hey, we haven't received it. So I'm not exactly sure the reason behind that. I don't know if it's the pandemic related to it and they're just backlogged. But they were, they're efficient. I was there for a personal DOJ type fingerprinting, and it was efficient. It was computerized. You know, I walked in, they helped me right away. Appointments weren't needed. In the prior, I mean, this is my own experience. When I first worked here, I had to get my finger printed, made an appointment, and the person was not there at that point in time. So, and we've been hearing that from other hired employees. So we kind of went with, they can go to any vendor that does fingerprinting and DOJ background checks, but because they're here, we kind of, they can go to anywhere they want, but this was the next closest and more efficient or more convenient, let me put it that way, more convenient place to go to.
Are there vendors that will come here and do it?
It's hard because we
I know
don't
when
hire
we
a
did it
lot.
as attorneys, we
Mhm.
had some guy just show up to our building and he did the whole building, rather than us going out and getting it done on our own.
No, it's actually part of the requirements for the candidate or the thing you hire, is they go to wherever it's more, the reason why we send them to this particular one is they will bill us versus us reimbursing the candidate for
I
it.
think attorneys
They're not
pay
billing
more,
us
that's
for
why.
2 years. Is
Yes, yes.
Seems like a problem.
And we didn't just want to sit on it and not pay them because they did spend
Right.
money, but,
Yeah.
so that's the reason for that.
I have one quick question while still on this track. So is there an advantage to changing the chamber upgrades to coming from the ARPA fund rather than general fund, or is that just?
It just reserves
accounting?
our general fund
Okay.
monies.
All right. Thanks.
And it is an eligible expense for the ARPA funds.
We
That's
have to
great.
draw that pot of money down anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we have till June of 2024 to commit the monies, and then we have 2 years to pay the bills. So with these recommended budget amendments, we are looking at $1,048,000 of operating surplus. However, we do have one-time expenditures that we've budgeted, and that will drop our surplus down to $556,385. At the end of June 30, 2023, our general fund balance is estimated to be almost $23.5 million.
And is that with the 101,000 potential increase in, from the rise in savings accounts, interest rates?
Yes, that
That's
117,000.
included
Yes,
in
that's
that.
included
Okay.
in there. On the non-general fund, funds that we have, all the revenues and expenditures are tracking. We'll see a little bit more in detail how it's really doing at the third quarter review. However, again, we're recommending the small amendments, particularly to the ARPA fund. One of it, it's a total of $115,125. Part of that is the $99,400, and there's another $15,750, I believe, for the analysis of the asbestos, and if needed, the abatement for it. And then just on the lighting and landscape district fund, it's only $920, but it's the final cost for the front loader, where we split up the cost between the general fund and the lighting and landscape. And then our chart, as I always show you every quarter, its distribution's about the same as always. We have taxes at 43.3%. Our intergovernmental, which is the in lieu vehicle fee, is at 31.8%. So in total, our taxes provide about 75% of our general fund revenues. Of course, expenditures, again, public safety, 33.2, general government, which is the operating services that we provide, at 22.5%. So the breakup or the pie chart is almost always the same, within 0.2 or 0.1% change. So the fund balance for the general fund, with the amendments, we are looking at an operating revenue budget of $16,716,000. With the changes in the operating budget, expenditure budget, we're looking at a decreased budget of $15,668,000. The operating, as mentioned, the operating surplus is $1,048,000. However, when we apply the one-time revenues and expenditures, our estimated fund balance for the fiscal year will drop to $556,000. And as you can see, the $23,491,000 estimated fund balance at June 30th. Any
Mayor?
questions at this point?
Susan, could you go back to the graph? The public safety expenditure, 33.2%. It seems like a big chunk, but I just want to let the public know that that percentage in cities that have their own police department far exceeds that 33.2%.
Double that, probably.
Yes.
Yes, you're correct.
So, in light of the monies that we approved to expend for the flock camera system, I just can't support our public safety department enough. And I just want to make sure that, you know, our public is aware of not only the quality of service that we have from the sheriff department, but the cost savings we have as a city.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, one other question. I know it's not separated right now, it's just all inclusive, but I'm curious, do you know if the monies that we're receiving from, since we implemented the charging stations to, people have to pay for them now, is that pretty much on track with what we expected?
You know, I have not had the chance to analyze that. Adam and I work hand in hand, so I'm not sure if he's had time to analyze that. It's only been
Is it October?
since October, and then, so we haven't had a chance to analyze between expenditures and the revenues we're getting in.
Okay, so maybe in 6 months we could, I'm just curious.
I can
mean-
bring it back at the next quarterly review.
Okay, or when you have some extra time.
Okay.
I-
Thank
will do.
you.
I thought we actually said it so that we're recovering all the costs.
We
Yeah,
covered
we
what, I'm
weren't gonna
sorry?
make any money
Yeah,
on it.
but
Right.
we're
Right.
not gonna.
I'm
recover-
just
but yeah.
curious as to how that,
Yeah.
if that is indeed what we're doing.
I'll get back to you on those,
I
that
didn't-
information.
I
We're
don't
not
see it as a
losing any money.
moneymaker
We're
at
not
all,
losing any
but
money.
yeah.
No, we're not
just
making money off
wondering
of that.
If we're recovering what we paid out from when it was free.
Yeah, we're paying for the power, but installation is,
It's on cost.
still cost us
Yeah.
money.
And there are fees that ChargePoint will
Right.
charge us.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I see them used almost daily.
Yeah, those Teslas.
Thank you, that's it, sorry.
Any questions on the, I'll talk about fund balance also in more deeply in the next slide. So last quarter, I mentioned that our fiscal year 2021 general fund reserves are at $21,688,000. Our unaudited estimate for fiscal year 21-22, and I want to report that our audit has not been finalized. As mentioned, we had new auditors, and then the GASB 87 application is being implemented, and plus we were short a staff, but we are almost there. So I'll have information on that. But our estimated general reserves at the end of fiscal year 21-22 is $22,935,000. Of this, an estimated surplus of $1.2 million. However, that's kind of skewed because we had to recognize as revenues $742,000, of which SB 1186, and those are fees that we charge, I believe, developers. We charge them $4 and the city gets part of it. And it's for Disability Access and Education Fund that we're supposed to train staff on. There's about $27,000 of that. And then we also have in lieu deposits for street resurfacing and sidewalks. So instead of, I believe, the developer homeowner building streets or sidewalks, they give us money to perform that.
And one caveat to that as well, the street project and the sidewalk project that we do right now, before we close out that project and when we bring it back final to you, we're actually doing an analysis of the streets that were done. And for those streets that were done and those sidewalks that were done that would have applied to those deposits, we'll be applying those if there's a direct nexus to those. And I'll be coming back to you with some information about that as well. So some of those deposits may be able to be applied because a street that a property owner paid for that deposit, a sidewalk may have been repaired in their area because it needed to be repaired. So we've done that analysis to make sure that there's a clear nexus and a legitimate nexus between the two, but we'll bring that back to you.
And Brian, who does the training for disability, SB 1186?
The training for the disability, we have an ADA coordinator. One of our management analysts is actually our ADA coordinator for the city. The actual training in terms of what the SB 1186 funding, that's something we're going to be digging down into.
So we don't have that right now?
We don't have that right now, no.
And then to clarify, the $742,000 was already accounted for in a liability fund, so it's nothing that we're going to lose. The new auditors saw that we should be recognizing it as revenues as we receive it, and then at year end, we separate it through fund balance, another account in the fund balance reserve. And as you see here, the breakdown of the $22,935,000, at the budget process of 22-23, the council approved the $3.5 million were committed. That's for example, emergency and disaster funds, liquidity, and any local economic uncertainty. And then as you see, the $742,000 would be restricted. So it'd be restricted for those two items that are in the red above this. And then assigned the $10,455,000 that consists of economic development, facility management, fleet management. So those you can change. It's the council's prerogative to change that. And then that would leave us with unassigned fund balance of $8.2 million at the end of fiscal year 21-22. And
Just to clarify,
Yes.
the difference between the estimated surplus of 1.2 million and the restricted use, that remainder gets defaulted to the unassigned fund balance?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that's about $500,000 we'll have a surplus of.
Mayor, may I make a suggestion to, going back to the in lieu deposit? I know tonight we're really not talking about that, but when you bring it back, Mr. City Manager, could you also perhaps remind us how the in lieu deposit were determined, or whether or not the current rate of in lieu charges to developers, whether that can be adjusted, or maybe, because we really don't have a pavement management plan, that is one source of revenue to help us with local streets.
I'd be happy to bring that back, but the short answer to your question, it's just simply been a flat rate that's been applied uniformly for quite some time.
Yeah, that's why I said when you bring it back in, you also kind of
Will do, sir.
discuss that. Yeah, thanks.
And as city manager mentioned, the $714,000 can be used to fund residential streets resurfacing. However, currently it's budgeted for Green Street improvement projects. So depending on what we can really use it for the residential street surfacing, we'll come back with an item. So here we go with the fiscal year 21-22, as I mentioned, 22.9 million. However, at the end of June 30, 2023, we're looking at $23,491,000. So that's another $556,000 in addition to last year's fund balance. So quickly in conclusion, as I mentioned, $556,000 in general fund surplus for this fiscal year. Our sales tax revenue estimates of $2.4 million will be an all-time high. However, in the next subsequent years, it's going to be projected as being flat. We're currently experiencing higher investment interest income. LAIF, which is the most liquid of all the investments we have, you can see December 2021, it was at 0.21%. A year later, 1.98%. So we're expecting to get higher revenues as it continues to increase. And then, again, the budget reallocation of the $99,400 from general fund to ARPA funds.
And
So,
Susan, how much do we have in LAIF?
18.6 million currently.
18.6. And what's like the estimated interest rate you foresee?
Right now, on this outlook, I will
okay.
get to you.
Thank you.
So we'll go with the cost of goods and services. At this moment, we know that the cost for sheriff's services are going to increase by almost 9%, and that's about $440,000, and maybe a little bit more. However, they're not the only ones. As you recall, last year, they only, I believe, increased their fees by 1.6, I want to say. So this is really, an increase that, even though we didn't expect this much, but we can plan for it. And then there could be other services that could increase also with the inflation. However, with the interest rates continuing to rise, hopefully we'll earn a little bit higher than the 117,000. As of the 15th, it was 2.79. However, as of today, it's at 2.85, so almost 1% from December to now. So hopefully life will continue to increase.
And as part of my city manager's report, I'm going to kind of report to you about kind of our investments and related to banking prices and why being in LAIF is one of the most sound and safest things we can do as an agency.
And that's a no-risk account, right? You don't ever lose your
No,
principal.
Correct.
100% insured by the federal government.
Okay.
So again, as I mentioned, sales tax would be flat and property tax revenues are considered to be flat. When I say flat, it's between 1 to 2% increase annually. We're not going to see like a 5% or 4% increase. And then finally, our fiscal year 2023-24 budget process has begun. We started on February 24th. Departments are supposed to get their budgets into admin services by this Friday, and hopefully we can start seeing some kind of a rough draft estimate for next year.
Susan, years ago, and I think Vincent, you were on that, Tom was, I don't recall if it was in place when William was. There used to be 2 council members that were part of the budget process. Was it an ad hoc or but it was set aside, and council members, do you remember, Vincent, what that was?
You mean like a budgetary ad hoc committee?
Yes, and it was,
I don't remember it
I
being
can't
an ad
recall,
hoc.
it was-
I remember the mayor, whoever was the mayor at the time, was part of that process of,
Yeah, we did
Putting
that
together,
for a
but-
few years,
yeah,
yes.
we did it for a few years
Do
and
you
then we just
remember
stopped
why
doing
we
it.
did it or why we stopped?
I don't know.
At the time, the city manager thought that instead of bringing a budget study that is so perhaps new to all 5, he thought that it would be good to have 2 council members, and it was fitting for the mayor to be one of the members, to be the initial budgetary study and then brought back to the entire council.
Do cities do that, Susan, or was that unique?
Not the
that-
cities I've been with.
Okay.
There would be, like, we have the audit committee, but we've never had council members in a budget
It just made me
process.
think when we're talking about this, I never realized that it stopped, but it did.
It
And
did.
never knew why. Maybe it was when Brian, you came on.
I
It
think
could be
part-
when
I
we
think
did the
part of
budget session.
Part of the reason was
Yeah,
that
study
it was
session.
better just to have all 5
Mhm.
be kind of part of it together, rather than, let's say, 2
Two
getting a head
people.
start.
Okay,
Yeah, I think there might have been some comments like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
okay. Thank you.
And so we plan to bring the budget to you for adoption tentatively on June 6th, at the June 6th meeting.
And with some study sessions before that.
Yes, with study sessions. So that concludes my presentation. As recommended, for council to receive the fiscal year 22-23 mid-year financial review and related reports, and also approve and authorize staff to revise the fiscal year 22-23 revenue and expenditure estimates as indicated in attachment A.
Thank you. So we'll go to council questions. If there's any from, let's start with Councilmember Viscara.
I don't have any.
Councilmember you? Councilmember Sternquist, any more questions?
No, just, I think, all these budget things for some reason are circling in my head right now, but Susan, was that you that we had budget briefs or something where it was just like a condensed version of highlights of the budget? Somebody did that for us. Do you recall? I don't know if, William, you were on board then or not. Maybe it was all in the same cycle, but it was
Like
sort
a
of a little,
pamphlet type?
it was a condensed, like a 3-page thing with highlights and maybe you could take a look and see if it's someplace. But I remember that being really helpful when we started going through the budget process, not at this point, but when we started going, because it was very easy to read instead of having to sit down and read every department and go through everything. It was just broken up by departments and it was highlights. And I don't know if maybe you did that, I don't know, or maybe it was Tracy,
It
but
wasn't me.
Might be the summary that you provide every year before the budgetary.
For the
study.
budget study session?
Yeah, I think
I don't know,
that-
but
think
it
that
was
must be
really
what you-
helpful.
The short summary.
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist, we can look at something, there's also something called a popular annual report as well that's, has been used by agencies in the past. Susan and I can talk about some kind of document that can give kind of bigger highlights, a little less on the financial statement standpoint, from a financial statement presentation standpoint, and more on the more of just some general overviews of the bigger trends and everything else. So we can work on that for sure.
I just recall it being really helpful than having to, I mean, some people love to go through, all the documents, but this was really helpful.
Okay.
We'll take a look
consider.
at developing one of those again.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez, any more questions?
Nothing more, thank you.
Okay. All right. Then I will open the public comment for this item. Anyone would like to comment? All right. Seeing none, I will close public comment. And any final council questions or comments? Councilmember Viscara? Councilmember Yu? Sternquist?
No.
Mayor
Thank
Pro
you.
Tem? All right. Well, I'll just say, again, Director Paragas, thank you very much for a very well put together presentation. It's, I agree with Councilmember Sternquist. In fact, I think what really helps us is you're always able to capture the snapshots of sort of the main key differences and changes. And what I appreciate is the occasional comparison with what we had previously done. It's always good to kind of remind ourselves, oh, well, we did this last fiscal year, or what was the reason for that? And I know in the coming budget study session, we will be getting a lot more information from you, so thank you. With that, may I have a council motion for this item?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we receive the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 mid-year financial review and related reports, and approve and authorize staff to revise revenue and expenditure estimates as indicated in attachment A, and find that the mid-year financial review is not a project under CEQA, and therefore no environmental review is required.
All right, we have a motion and a second. There's no objections. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Councilmember Sternquist,
Yes.
Councilmember Viscara, Councilmember Yu,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Yes,
Mayor Mann.
Yes. So that motion carries. We will move on to an update from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Mann and members of the council. Kind of dovetailing off of the mid-year report, I think the last week or so there's been a lot of concerns about the banking sector. And I want to break down just very briefly, and it was actually in your mid-year budget report, but I want to break down for you and the public just kind of what we do and how our city treasurer and through you and reported to you as the council are truly custodians of the public funds that we receive. Our investment portfolio plus our cash management is broken down into a couple things. One, we have a general bank account, and that's with Wells Fargo, one of the largest institutions in the country. And that comes with some amount of funds at some time or another. So you just paid the warrant register, so sometimes that's several $1 million, sometimes that's $500,000. But that's used as our business account. So cash does flow through there. Where that cash flows through is primarily two places, and Mayor Sternquist just brought one of them up, which is LAIF, and that is the state of California's pooled funds from all agencies, including the state of California as well. Those funds are invested in short and mid-term government securities. They are not invested in any individual bank or anything else. The other large pool of funds that we invest in is actually with the County of Los Angeles. The County of Los Angeles actually invests in short-term government securities as well. because of the good financial position we're in as well, we try to diversify that fund, those investments. Those also include a large pool of government securities, primarily short-term and some a bit long-term. The state government code only restricts the amount of funds that we can allocate and the manner in which we can allocate, and you'll see that every year you get the ACFR, the annual comprehensive financial report, that spells out what the state code requires in terms of that distribution of investments. The other pool of investments that we do invest in is fixed income. Those are also tied to direct government securities. The one area where we try to go after a bit of yield is in certificates of deposits. But as you'll see in your financial report too, there is not one investment that we make that goes above the $250,000 FDIC insured threshold. The interest may go a little bit above that, in which you saw that in some of the reports, but the principal amount is always insured, and we never go above that. That's also required by the government code as well. So Susan, as our city treasurer, will come to me and say, I have a CD that's paying 4.75. I'm going to go after it. It's $250,000. It's still FDIC insured. So I want to make. I know the council knows this very well, and you receive the city treasurer reports as well. But our investment portfolio plus the cash that we use on a daily basis is in as secure institutions, and there's really very extremely low levels of risk in terms of where our cash is, and the fiduciary responsibility that both the city treasurer, and I know the city council make sure that we exhibit in our investment strategies going forward. So I just want to make sure I kind of express that to the council. And the treasurer's report is available to all the public, so you see every single instrument, every place where our cash is being invested, how much and at what time on a monthly basis. So.
No SVB. What was it?
Silicon Valley Bank.
Well, even in the slight chance that if we invested in a CD that with a bank that went under, we go below the FDIC insured or right at the $250,000, so we would never lose principal on that. There could be a risk that we could lose some accrued interest if we held that CD for longer than this is my old finance days. I can't remember how long you can hold that CD, but that principal would be intact. So there's maybe some risk that you'd lose a little bit of accrued interest, but you will never lose the entire dollar amount that we invested in those CDs.
So perhaps along the lines of what you're talking to us about, perhaps a question our residents might have is, well, will we as a city, our investments be impacted by the fallout from things like Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic, that loss of trust in that moment that caused that collapse? Does that have some sort of tangible impact on our return of investments?
That's a great question, and my initial response was actually we're in a better position. We're in a better position because we were investing in LAIF and other security and other instruments that actually are yielding some of the highest yields that we've seen in more than a decade. So we're actually in an advantageous position because, as Councilmember Sternquist asked about LAIF and the other pools, we can make, I think it's 48 hours, is it 24 or 48 hours? 24 hours, we can make the call into the state, and we can, if we needed to withdraw all that $13 million and have it in cash, which would be another problem, but say we had a emergency where we needed millions of dollars of cash, we have it within 24 hours.
Actually,
So
let me take it back. It's actually, if you call before 10 a.m. on LAIF, that money will get to our Wells Fargo bank that same day.
So the historic yield that we're seeing, and the state treasurer actually sends, I get that email, Susan also gets that email seeing the historic rate of return and the yield that we're seeing. The yield spread between what we were getting even a year ago to now is pretty historic. So we're really quite great, and credit to our city treasurer for not going out too long, and that's kind of one of the advantageous aspects of being a conservative city in terms of our cash management. Susan did not go out long on a lot of our investments, and we're actually able to take advantage of the investment interests that are yielding quite a bit of interest today. And remember, if we have to go mark to market as well. So if we're going out on longer securities, and part of the reason Silicon Valley Bank had its problems, if you're reading the Wall Street Journal and everything else, that was part of the issue. We're both liquid and we're getting yield right away, and we're not having to worry about selling and going to market and selling a bond that's out for 5 years that was 1.1% interest, which may have been good 18, 24 months ago. It's not the position we're in. So credit to our city treasurer for that responsible and taking that fiduciary responsibility very seriously.
So Brian, that potential this year to make $468,000 in interest, that goes into our general fund, right?
Not all of it, because we have to allocate some of those interests to the other non-general fund monies. For example, Proposition A funds, if we have reserves there, Prop C funds, any of those restricted funding sources, we also have to allocate interest to them, because part of that, I believe $46 million that we show on the treasurer's report includes their monies. So we also have to give them the share of the interest, not just the general fund.
So our special funds accrue interest just like our general
Yes.
fund does.
So that money goes to different pots?
Correct.
within- Okay.
So.
So I was already thinking ways to spend it.
That's unless the council has any other questions. Hopefully I've
So
answered.
thank you. That was a very, very detailed and helpful for us to understand.
Thank you.
Two more quick things. We are going to have our Easter event in April. Our SWA, our consultants for the architects, are going to do some outreach at that event. I'll provide you some more details of what programmatically that looks like, some outreach about getting some community input about the new playgrounds as well. That'll be one of at least two community outreach events that we do, but I'll get you some more details on that by the end of the week. And I didn't let you guys know this yet, but we're having some scheduling issues with our law enforcement meeting, so we're probably going to consolidate our next law enforcement meeting into April next year. So we'll do April and March and April together.
And will they continue to be at 7 in the morning?
Unless directed otherwise, sir.
Oh,
And-
absolutely.
And I think my colleague will take on one other issue as well.
Okay.
That's it for my report tonight, sir. Thank you for
We're gonna
indulging me.
cover that funding update, this low AZUSA, Santa Anita.
Oh, sorry, excuse me, yes, one, thank you, Councilmember Yu. We have some potential lapsing Prop C and STPL funds. What we have done is that we can actually go to Metro, which we have already done, and ask them to put those in a capital reserve account so that we can accumulate those over the next 3 years so that there's enough money to spend for Santa Anita, to repave Santa Anita and repave Lower Azusa over, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 years. So that we essentially designate that Prop C funding can only be used for bus route thoroughfares and arterials that have bus routes. So that's a limited amount of roads that we can use for that. So and STPL funds are the same. They can only be used for roads that have bus routes as well. So rather than trying to find other ways to spend that money, which it's extremely limited and a little convoluted, we've actually gone to Metro and asked them to reserve those for the next 3 years so we can accumulate enough of a fund balance that we can actually have a viable funding for a project.
Is 3 years the maximum?
The 3 years is the initial maximum, but apparently we can go out farther. So if we get to that 3 years, we've scoped out the project already, and I'll be working with TransTech to scope that out and get those engineer estimates and maybe some cost escalation as well, but apparently we can't extend that out farther as well. If our funding, if the engineer's estimate doesn't meet what our funding is from both sources.
Are we completely responsible for Lower Azusa?
A little bit of a trick, no, we're not. It's a bit of a zigzag jigsaw puzzle down there.
So does Almani get involved or?
When we do the project, Almani is apparently thinking about doing some repairs to Lower Azusa in the next 18 months or so. So we are in, our city engineer and our traffic engineer is in contact with them. So we're going to try our best to coordinate efforts on that front, but we'll be working together with them.
Well, I was gonna say tonight is really not talking about how we do approve those projects, so I was just gonna, only asking you to bring this back, and when you bring it back, then we discuss it, because I think you talk about Lower Azusa and Santa Anita, if memory serves me right, we actually own all the way to the other side of the sidewalk. It's one of those things that we are responsible to upkeep.
Which one?
Both roads, but we're not, but we don't have the benefit of the tax income from the other side. So I believe when we had some arrangement with City of Lower, with
Almani.
Almani for some funding, some funding agreement.
We have a tax reimbursement agreement
Right.
for a fixed portion of both the Starbucks and Home Depot of about a little over $50,000 and significantly less for the for the Starbucks.
Right, but for the, when you bring this back, this is gonna cost a lot more. So I was just gonna ask you to, city manager, when he brings this back, to bring back some suggestions.
Will do, sir. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Then next we'll have an update from our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will actually be very brief, and that's a good thing. Today, the County Board of Supervisors took up an eviction moratorium or restriction on evictions of residential tenants. It would have lasted for a year and would have included incorporated cities. It was unsuccessful. It was a 2-2-1 vote. Supervisor Mitchell abstained. Supervisors Hahn and our own supervisor voted against. Supervisor Hahn made some comments that with unemployment low and with COVID moving really from a pandemic to an endemic situation, now is not the time for the County Board of Supervisors to be putting new restrictions or extend restrictions in incorporated cities. So I bring it up in part because I had looked at it and was ready to give some more details on what it would have done, but more so because it may signal kind of a change in the way that the supervisors are looking at county-wide regulations that affect incorporated cities. We'll keep an eye on it, and I do thank Council Member Yu for bringing that to my attention last week. Thank you all.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll go to council reports on ad hoc or standing committee meetings. Do we have any? No? Okay.
No,
Yeah,
Mayor.
we met.
Oh, yeah. You go ahead. I'll add.
When was it, last Friday we met, Brian?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, and we're looking at, one of the members of the, Public Arts, are we calling it still the Public Arts, Committee?
Yeah, Primrose.
The Primrose Park.
And it had to do with the tile work at Primrose Park. And the reason we rushed into meeting on this is one of the members, no, let me go back a little ways. There's tile work still outstanding, as well as the benches at the new park. And the reason the tile work is outstanding is that the tile maker that we originally had, that we were going to use for the tile on the walls, for the murals, and on the bathroom, I don't know, he went out of business, something happened anyway, that manufacturer is not available, but we discovered a new one in Laguna Beach, and so Bob Hepler, got some samples of his work and wanted to share it with the committee to see if perhaps we wanted to use it. Beautiful. He brought it up, we looked at it, it's beautiful, and we had some discussion about it, and the reality is that these guys, when they take a project on like that, they're tied up for a long time, and there's usually one artisan working on one product. So you gotta wait until that artisan is available to get what you want, and we didn't wanna lose any more time. So, Brian, are you gonna come back to the council and show them?
I'm happy to show them, but we have the authorization to move forward, so we'll do that. But I'll show the council.
I just wanted them to know.
Absolutely.
The tile work is beautiful. It's better than what we had planned before. So we agreed that we would proceed forthwith to implement the new tile work.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, we're not really changing anything. It was just substituting the artist. That's what we decided. That so now, and actually, in some sense, the artwork, in my opinion, is actually nicer. This tile artist is actually, in my opinion, is a higher caliber than the previous one that we thought. So after we contract, I guess at some point, the entire council will see. All we did was decide on the person. We didn't get to see the sketch or anything. So I think at some point, we'll probably, the entire council will get to see the sketches prepared by the artist.
Well, and we now have
before
photos of
installation.
them too.
Yeah. So that was one, and then we also discussed benches with some minor complications with with getting the benches.
Well, the price.
Yeah, the price gone up.
ballooned.
Yeah. So
And so, I think we've decided that we're gonna focus on doing one bench and doing it right. And they were concerned that Councilmember Chavez might be disappointed with that because you had wanted more benches last time when you had seen them, when you had reviewed them. But the cost has become prohibitive. So we're gonna do one and do it right.
yeah, we
I'm sure it'll
wanted.
be fine.
Yeah, we wanted to do one that we all will be proud of. We want to take pictures with, so we want to do it right. So the ad hoc committee thought that we'll just, go ahead with one for now. So
And that's it.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And also, while we're on this item, I would also like to establish the City Commissioner Recruitment Ad Hoc Committee, since we do have some terms expiring and potentially recruiting commissioners. So, is there anyone who would like to volunteer to be part of that? When was the last
Thank
time
you,
we
Tom.
did?
Last year, didn't? No, I wasn't on it last year.
You weren't?
I don't think so. I thought it was
I thought
Fernando
it
and,
was you too, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Fernando and Williams.
And I believe so.
Okay, last year.
Yeah.
Did we do anything?
No, you guys recommended we just see everybody, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, every year might be different, since you never know if there's incumbent commissioners that no longer want to serve, or if they want to continue to serve. Yeah.
I'll do it.
Do it? Okay.
Yeah,
Mayor
I've
Pro
done it
Tem?
for a while.
Okay, I'll join.
No, I don't know. Then I don't want to do it. I'll do it.
What do you need to?
Yes. Okay, very well
We haven't
then.
done anything together for a while. That's good. Good.
Yeah, I know
We can
it
go
was
chefs.
perfectly fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
All right, then it shall be Mayor Pro Tem Chavez and Councilmember Viscara. Thank you. All right, next, council items separate from the regular agenda. Councilmember Sternquist,
I don't have anything, thank you.
Councilmember Viscara,
Nothing more.
Councilmember Yu,
Nothing more.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
No, just one really quick question, because you brought up the artwork. What's the status on the artwork on those Rosemead monuments that we approved? Where we stand on those things, you know? I know Adam's not here, but.
No, I've been in contact with Miss Keelan this week, in
Okay.
the last week.
So
So
they're-
they're actually getting fabricated.
Oh, nice.
She's getting it tested. There was an issue with the Converse, I think. It was one of the trademark issues she had
Oh,
to get
yeah,
through.
Yeah, the shoe.
So that's been resolved, and she's actually going to the fabricator to move forward.
Look forward to it. That's it.
How much did we approve for that?
No, I forget.
I
now.
believe
2,800 or something?
3,000,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
$3,000.
Did we still end up having the Converse logo?
No, she had to remove it.
Ah, so that's too
Yeah.
bad. I thought we were gonna ask Converse for some money
And,
Yeah, no.
to,
she had to
That
re-
would've
she had to
been-
remove
that
it.
would've been the
ask
right
them for
thing.
money to advertise.
That would have been the right thing
trademark.
for them
Yeah,
to fill out
right,
for his
yeah.
money rather than did not allow us to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Oh, well, their loss.
All right. For me, just a couple quick things. I do want to give a shout out to our assembly member, Mike Fong, he and his staff had hosted 2 different things here in Temple City. We had one that coincided with our neighborhood watch meeting last week, happened to be next door, side by side. So I know Mayor Pro Tem covered the neighborhood watch. I know myself and Councilmember Sternquist was at the Women of Impact Awards at the Historical Society Women's Club. So I just want to thank him for recognizing a lot of the many of the wonderful women of impact in the Assembly District 49. In Temple City, Principal Myra Rudell from Emperor Elementary was the award recipient. And so I had the pleasure of sitting with a bunch of our friends from the school district. So they were all in attendance and in support of Principal Rudell. So that was very nice. Also, the assembly member has this Young Leaders program. As many of you probably have seen, Cassandra Carmona, the field rep for the assembly member, has been ever so present in many of our events. She also brought this Young Leaders program. They held one of their workshops here in the community room just 2 weeks ago. I had a chance to be their guest speaker, so I shared a little bit about not just myself, but also what I do on city council, as well as what the city does, what the city council does as a whole. They had a chance to tour the council chambers. I think they had a fun time. Very engaged group of 10th and 11th graders. To me, they felt like college students in terms of the questions that they asked, their curiosity. In fact, the exercise that Assemblymember Fong's staff had them do was to run a mock committee hearing of the assembly. So they simulated the whole meeting of the process of like hearing a bill, having like a supporter, having questions from the people role-playing as assembly members, role-playing as witnesses. So I thought it was great because the best way to really simulate or to learn something is to like make them go through the motions of having to do it, and to me that's also a great example of why our youth committee is kind of ahead of everyone's game, because that's what the youth committee does as part of their meetings. They're actually running a meeting and going through the process and learning it. So that was a great exercise, and I was very proud to be a part of that. So.
I forgot one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to address the issue with the deputy transfers and all that tonight? I real quick, yesterday I had a meeting with ALADS, and they're very concerned about the fact that they're considering a new policy to transfer deputies among all the different stations, and it's the whole issue of the jail gangs of deputies and those gangs also being out at the various stations. So, Brian, I think you've got some involvement with that.
I do, and respectfully, I'm going to keep it informational only at this point in time, but there is a report from the Civilian Oversight Board that has some recommendations dealing with deputy gangs, but also to some very overarching recommendations related to the rotation of deputies, what we are concerned about on the contract city level as well. And we, in the future, will be expressing some concerns about that one in particular that one particular recommendation from the Civilian Oversight Board. So
We may need to get involved sooner rather than later.
ready to go, sir.
Brian, I think it's April 8th or 18th, maybe you can check. I saw there was an email. I believe Contract Cities is hosting that day where you go down to, with the supervisors and the sheriff comes. What is that called?
The County Lobbying Day.
And I believe that will be in discussion for sure on that day, if anybody's interested in attending.
Are you planning on attending?
I'm hoping that Brian and I can go again. We went a couple years before the
Before COVID.
pandemic. If anybody else is interested, but I think it's a good
Well, I think it'll be
opportunity.
tough
Tom, you
for
want to come?
us, because we're with the county as well, so it's maybe, we'll be conflicted out to attend, I think.
But it was an interesting day if you want to go, Fernando, too. I mean, I think it's
Isn't that
fine if we all go, right,
Isn't
Greg?
that called their Advocacy Day or something like
Advocacy
that?
Day, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we work for.
Yeah, unfortunately, they have it during the day when most people are working.
April 6th.
April
Is
6th.
that a Wednesday?
April 6th?
It's your golf day, I think.
Yeah.
You and me, you and me. So we always.
All right.
And
And
County Local Advocacy Day, April 6th at 8 o'clock,
is that Contract Cities?
Contract Cities. At the cathedral.
Fernando, you're our
Oh, that's good.
delegate.
Which
That's a good day for you to go,
At the cathedral.
if you wish.
It's neutral ground.
You mean the Contract Cities delegate?
Yes, you are.
I don't know how that ever happened. I've yet to go to a meeting.
Because you like to go to up to the desert, that's why.
Oh, that's it.
Okay. All right. One last thing I will mention is, as many of you may already know, the new chamber executive director began work earlier this month, and I am the council liaison to that group. So we had a very productive first, I call it first board meeting because it's the first one with the new executive director. The outlook is great. The chamber board is very excited to be a part of this kind of this renewal of the chamber. So they do have a lot of events and things planned in the coming year, and I think they're looking to recruit members who want to be a part of that. So more to come. Right now, it's a lot of it is conceptual, but I'm certainly excited for it, and we'll see what this new team could bring.
You should urge him to come and introduce himself.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. There's also, well, on that note, one thing that I really liked about it is they will be reaching out to individual council members if they haven't already, and wanting to engage with you regularly, which is something we did not have from before. And I will certainly keep everyone appraised as much as I can of what the chamber wants to do and plans to do. But any 5 of us in our capacity could do that as well. So keep an open mind.
Here's a question.
Yeah, Councilmember Scar, question?
So
Okay.
it was, is the executive director full-time?
The well, I think one of the overhauls the chamber did was to go away from this concept of full-time versus part-time, and it's more about defining results. So it's more performance-based and not trying to say, okay, well, you need X hours, that hours. I mean, they certainly have, they're going through a analysis of what it really means to have like office hours. So I think that's still in the works. I think earlier before we started our closed session meeting, you may have saw a young lady at the door by the name of Lily. She is one of the chamber staff. So yeah, there's a lot coming up, and we'll certainly, I'll try to keep everyone updated.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move on to additional public comments on items not listed. Any additional comments? All right, seeing none, we'll close that. And tonight, I do just, we don't say this enough, but a lot of our staff and people we work with, we consider part of the Temple City family. And so tonight, I'd like to adjourn in the memory of our city attorney, Mr. Greg Murphy's mother, Ann Murphy, who passed away recently. We certainly grieve with you, but we wish you and your family the best through this very difficult time. You know we are with you. And with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.